Hello again. This is another story from the 1960s. There were good times in the 1960s, you know, as a lot of my contemporaries will tell you. We could do exciting things without a lot of control. Oh dear, someone's just told me today they've stopped the train running up to Mallaig now, the steam train, because it's a corridor train with old running stock and evidently you can open the doors. Yes. What's wrong with that? There's a train runs down at the line past the bottom of our garden from Paris to Nantes several times a day, 2 or 3 times a day in each direction. It's an old corridor train that's been taken out of retirement, painted pink, and it has a 1960s 70s electric traction unit, because it's all electrified here, stuck on the front, and it hurtles along. This isn't an official TGV line here. I mean, I'm bumbling on a bit. It's interesting, but the TGVs have to go slow because the track is used by all kinds of traffic, you see. So, but this thing, it hurtles along faster than a TGV, but it stops. It gets you from Paris to Nantes in 4 hours. If you go on a TGV, you can do it in half the time because it doesn't stop. And it's a corridor train, you know, it's a train from the 1950s and 60s that, you know, the windows are open with a leather strap and things like that. And it's cheap. What's wrong with that? I don't know. Jobsworths are getting everywhere, aren't they? Right, let's back to this story. 1960s, and it's a story from the 1st Boston Sea Scout Cub Unit on an annual outing to the Norfolk Broads, where they discovered, much to their distress, that there were no sharks in the Norfolk Broads. They tried their very best to entice sharks to come near the boat, as you can hear from the story, but they were very disappointed that they didn't see any. And this is the story all about it. Cubs, or wolf cubs to give them their correct title for those who do not know, are younger Boy Scouts. During my younger and more energetic years, I've been a wolf cub leader, and it was during this time I was lucky to marry the other wolf cub leader, Ruth. Following that, I became scout leader and latterly a group scout leader too. However, the episode I'm about to relate to you happened in the late 1960s, when the 1st Boston Sea Scout Unit Wolf Cubs enjoyed their annual outing, this time to the Norfolk Broads. Each year they went somewhere different, somewhere the leaders felt they could cope with, not just the place itself, but the fact that time without number, after the first 5 or 10 miles have been completed, when either 2 or 3 boys have been heartily sick, and those not sick are demanding how long before we get there, or we're hungry, Arcala, can we have our lunch now? Arcala, by the way, is the traditional title for the leader of the Wolf Cub pack, all based on Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book. Likewise, the assistant leaders have similar names from the said book. Extensive preparation for the event included locating numerous medium-sized cardboard boxes that can be strategically placed inside the bus, our favourite and in fact only choice of transport, close to the leader or adult helper, who can rapidly project the offending boy's head over the box at times of urgent illness, and thence deposit the box at the next convenient lay-by rubbish receptacle. The boys demanding sustenance at such an early hour will just have to wait and try not to repeat their request too frequently. Let us say it was 1967, as I cannot remember the exact year. My wife Ruth will remember, but if I get her involved in this story too soon, I will never get any facts down on paper for her constantly correcting my grammar and spelling. In the east of England, the Norfolk Broads are a large collection of interlinked natural and man-made waterways covering a large part of eastern Norfolk, including Norwich itself and spreading north and south of Great Yarmouth on the coast. They are naturally beautiful and consequently very popular for recreation and holidays. No need to dwell on this too much, as many folk know the Broads well and have even experienced its charm. All types and sizes of boats are for hire: holiday boats, sailing boats, and boats for hire by the day. We had chosen a large wooden-built day boat from Wroxham, a boat of elegant style. Traditionally built to accommodate 50 or so passengers, it had toilet facilities, and the open cruiser-type stern had beautifully upholstered seating, following the natural curve of the boat's original classic shape. The whole area was roofed in with drop-down curtains for inclement weather. The pilot or helmsman sat in the bow, that's the front, in his own little position, a little like a bus driver. After travelling for over 100 miles, naturally the boys were exuberant and appreciated letting off some steam on a convenient grassy place. We then began to embark. Lunch had not been permitted as it was only still 10:30 a.m, so food and drink went aboard too, together with the ever patient bus driver, proprietor Brian. We must not forget Brian, as year after year he faithfully provided us with the cheapest tender for our outings and then insisted he drove us himself. Either he just did not trust us, or he loved every minute. I've mentioned the fact that we were a Sea Scout unit. I was the scout leader, and we had several of the elder Sea Scouts with us to keep control, together with 2 assistant leaders. Leaders wear officer-type naval pattern hats, and scouts themselves wear the round sailor traditional pattern white top cap. Our exciting day really began when we had all embarked for our voyage. The pilot settled himself into his seat and put the boat into gear. As he opened the throttle to leave the jetty, all we felt was a severe jerk and a loud squeal. We had noticed that he had not cast off the stern rear mooring line, but no one had the heart to embarrass him by reminding him. The consequence was far more embarrassing for him, as he had to walk the length of the boat getting redder and redder in the face and enduring the tittering from younger boys, and hard to conceal mirth from the older hands. We realised then that our pilot did not have a huge capacity for humour. We had hardly left the jetty when the boys realised there was a toilet on board. I'm never sure what it is with small boys and toilets, but they seem attracted like magnets. The poor toilet door was never still the whole voyage, and how we did not take on a huge permanent list to the side where the toilet was situated, I can only assume the toilet tank must have been beneath the whole of the boat width. There were about 40 boys on the outing, all hugely excited, especially when one of the Sixers, a lad called Philip, always full of life and endless questions, asked rather too loudly, "When are we going to see the sharks, Arcala?" There was a very mixed reaction to this question, but the general effect was to bring almost every boy to the stern, that's the back of the boat, where I was seated, much to the consternation of our already troubled pilot. While endeavouring to persuade all the boys to go back to their seats and take turns to come to the stern and look for sharks, Ruth and I were assailed by, "I say, Arcala, Pip's knelt in my sandwiches." This from a tall, studious lad called Geoffrey, who led a rather different and more sheltered upbringing to many of the very mixed bunch we catered for. There's one thing you learn as a cub leader: Arcala knows best. This in fact means Arcala knows more too, and the respect this brings from the cubs week after week only came to light to me when a parent came to me and said, "My boy dwells on your every word. Every evening after cubs he's full of what he has done and is going to do. All the time it is, Arcala says this and Arcala says that. He takes more notice of you than he does of me." To realise this is both humbling and worrying too. But not to worry for long, because after cubs come scouts, and then it is totally different. Unless you're at least a week ahead in your planning with scouts, and 2 weeks is better, then you can completely lose control. By the time boys are 11 and over, they think faster than you do. Back to our boat, and now Philip has taken Geoffrey's remarks so literally that he has begun to cast Geoffrey's sandwiches to the countless ducks and other mixed waterfowl that have by now realised they are witnessing their lifetime dream, an infinite travelling food bar. Before we reached our next stopping point and leg stretching session, we had gathered what seemed like every possible type of water bird for miles around. They were chasing and fighting over a stream of pork pies, sausage rolls, sandwiches of all kinds, mixed with a good choice of fancy cake. Still no sharks. So the general opinion from the boys was that if the sharks were not attracted by all that good food, then there were no sharks in the Norfolk Broads. A fact that holidaymakers for years to come will be delighted to hear. Amidst all the melee of lunchtime, I could not help notice a small boy with a very large bottle of pop. He made a beeline for Brian, the coach driver, and before I could arrest the situation, Brian had done it. He opened the bottle. Unfortunately, he'd not seen the previous few minutes of tussling hither and thither, while the small boy, Andrew, with light blonde hair and innocent eyes, had tilted the bottle every possible way while he tried to open it. The result was spectacular and very funny, but not for Brian. He had to sit around in soaking lemonade-flavoured trousers for the rest of the day. Boats, unlike coaches, have holes in the floor, and the river of lemonade quickly disappeared below decks. We were prevented from having to endure another series of stern looks from our pilot, but not from the coach driver. The remainder of the day was by contrast an anticlimax. We arrived back at the coach without further incident, and the journey home was comparatively quiet, as all seemed exhausted from their experiences, particularly the leaders. There we are, no sharks in the Norfolk Broads. That is positive for now, as proved by, I don't know, 40 or 50 young lads who were witness to the fact in the 1960s. And the poor old bus driver who had to drive home with his trousers saturated in lemonade. So I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, if you like it, think about giving us a like and think about subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost anything. It helps the channel to grow though. And share it with your friends, okay? If you want to read the actual story or any other stories from the 1960s, Boston 1960, 1970, you can download the book free of charge from our website, as you can any other publication from Cracker Books. Have a look at the website. It's lots of hours and hours of entertainment there. Thank you for being with us today. Until next time, cheerio.